Stimulus 2.0 coming soon. I'm Jennifer Griffin in for Greta Van Susteren. $787 billion later, some Democrats say we need another one to save the economy. Republicans see it as a midterm election rallying cry. So who is right? We have both sides covered. First, Senator Richard Shelby is here with me in Washington. He's the ranking Republican on the Senate Banking Committee. He opposes any talk of any more stimulus. Senator, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Now, I remember what you said about the first stimulus. You said it was a disgrace. So I can only imagine what you think about this talk of a second stimulus. Why is this not a good idea?
Well, it's not a good idea for a lot of reasons. But one, the stimulus we have put together that I oppose, most of the money has not even been spent. You know, in other words, the stimulus has not been implemented yet. And now they're talking about another one. I think it's a dumb idea. I think that it will not work. Most economists, I wouldn't say all, most economists, the overwhelming majority, would say we don't need a stimulus. And even the Washington Post today, in an editorial you may have seen, questioned the idea of another stimulus. They said this would be the third stimulus because we had a stimulus of some kind under Bush, and then the big one under Obama, and now they're talking about another one. My goodness, the Washington Post said basically, and I want to quote them in a sense, they were concerned about the credit worthiness of our paper down the road. In other words, our bonds. Right. If we continue to borrow and borrow, I believe we cannot borrow our way to prosperity.
Now, what I don't understand is why so little of this $787 billion has been spent. It's about 10% that has been spent. And we were told at the time when this was rushed through in February that these were shovel-ready projects. Why only 10%?
Well, just to say, talk about shovel ready, obviously a lot of shovels weren't ready, and to put people back to work, to build all these things. And there's a lot of politics in this stimulus, as we all know, Democratic politics. I thought that was a mistake. I know a second stimulus would be a mistake because we're going to borrow that money. And it won't turn the economy around. A lot of things will turn the economy around, but I don't believe the stimulus will.
Now, Treasury Secretary Timothy Geithner was on the Hill today. He was meeting for an oversight committee hearing. Here's what he said. Let's hear your response.
The stimulus package is on its expected path in terms of the rate of change and in terms of put money in the pockets of taxpayers, to provide substantial forms of assistance to states to reduce the risk that they're forced to fire tens of thousands of teachers, workers, and firemen. And there are very substantial investments in infrastructure products that have already started to take effect and will have their maximum impact on the economy in the second half of this year. So my own sense is, and I think this is a consensus of broad-based economists, that there has been substantial improvements in arresting what was the worst recession globally we've seen in generations, and those are the result of the actions this Congress took, the administration put in place, and complementary actions taken by governments around the world to, again, help address what is the worst crisis we've seen in a long period of time.
Do you agree that the crisis would have been worse if there hadn't been this stimulus package?
I don't agree. I think that there would be pain out there because we are in a world recession, you know, a contraction of the economy. But the sooner we face up to this, and the sooner we straighten out our banks, that's the key to where banks can start lending. There's a liquidity crisis in this country. Even after the TARP bailout of the banks, a lot of the banks aren't lending. Small, medium-sized businesses are dying for capital and for credit. And that hadn't happened yet. Secretary Geithner knows that, too.
Well, the Washington Post is reporting tonight that, in fact, the Obama administration is considering using some of the banking money for small businesses. Is that the answer?
Well, I don't know it's an answer. It's something we ought to consider. If there's money going to be out there, and this money has already been appropriated for that, borrowed, so to speak, borrowed for the banks, and the banks aren't lending, if we can get some money into the hands of a lot of small, medium-sized businesses, that's where your job creation comes from in America.
Okay. Thank you very much for being with us here, and we appreciate your thoughts on the stimulus. We'll have to wait and see. Some economists are saying that, in essence, the economy will turn around by the end of this year, but we'll have to see if that is in fact the case. But thanks for being with us, Senator Shelby.